Hey YouTube, what's up? It's CS back here with another installment, and here are my picks for UFC 143, Diaz versus Condit. Alrighty folks, well, what do you guys think of this card overall? In my opinion, it does look pretty good, at least the main card does. Only one match on the main card really doesn't make sense to me, but the preliminary card, of course, less than stellar like usual. But we've been getting decent preliminary cards as of late, and I just don't see how this one lives up to any of them. So, yeah, I'm kind of let down by it, but I'm not going to do much complaining. It is for free. But let's get to this main card, of course. Of course, at the main event, we have Carlos Condit versus Nick Diaz for the Inter Welterweight Championship. That looks like a fight of the year candidate on paper. So, yeah, let's hope it lives up to that hype. But in order for me to break that down, I have to go through the rest of the main card. So let's take a look at the first matchup of the main card. Of course, that's between Ed Herman and Clifford Starks in middleweight. Now, actually, this is the one bout on the main card that doesn't make sense to me, because Ed Herman beating Clifford Starks, which he's expected to do, does not do a lot for Ed Herman. You know, he already had two very emphatic wins over two UFC mainstays in Kyle Noak and Tim Crater. What more is Clifford Starks going to be for him? He's not even a name, you know what I'm saying? So, I don't know. I just don't think it's fair that Ed Herman gets someone like Clifford Starks, someone who he should absolutely school. Guys, Clifford Starks is pretty much a Division I wrestler only, stuck in the MMA game. We saw him against Dustin Jacoby. He didn't look that impressive there. Of course, he was doing his wrestling thing. He was taking Jacoby down using decent top control, not getting submitted. He was doing all that, but he got caught in some attempts. And if his sub-D looked, average at best in that fight, I think Ed Herman has him beat if it goes to the ground immediately. Ed Herman has improved with his offensive guard from the bottom. And yeah, it wouldn't surprise me to see Clifford Starks get subbed with an armbar or something stupid like that. And I think that's actually probable if it does go to the ground. So I think Ed Herman has the advantage there. But I think this will remain standing up because I think Ed Herman likes to do that more. And I think he's a good enough counter wrestler to do so. He works out Team Quest. He's been there for many years. And yeah, I just think he's going to be training with the right guys to be able to prepare for someone as one-dimensional as Clifford Starks. So I look for Ed Herman to defend takedowns and just sprawl and brawl with Clifford Starks. And I think he should have him the fuck out of there in like less than a round. So yeah, I'm going to go with Ed Herman via punches, first round TKO. So UFC, please give Ed Herman a step up in competition after that. But now let's move on to that bantamweight bout between Renan Barão and Scott Jorgensen. Now, if Renan Barão wins this, guys, that's what, like 28 fights without a loss? The guy is nuts. He's on a roll. But this is definitely the toughest fight he's had so far. Scott Jorgensen, former championship contender, definitely, in my opinion, top 5 bantamweight. And yeah, I was actually calling for this fight to happen because both of them have wins over Brad Pickett. Both of these guys are still up on their way to a title shot. Of course, Jorgensen back on his way for a title shot. He's coming off 2 wins himself. And yeah, they never fought yet, so why not make it happen? Now, I think that Scott Jorgensen here is outmatched again. I think Renan Barão does possess some of the, problems that Dominic Cruz possessed, over Scott Jorgensen. And that's, of course, superior footwork on feet, speed. I think he's more agile. I just think that Scott Jorgensen is going to find difficulty trying to land, a haymaker of a right or left. And I think he's going to have difficulty trying to get Renan Barão down. I think if he does somehow take Renan Barão down, I think Renan Barão is good enough in the scrambles to get popped back up to his feet. And I don't think he's out of deep water. If he's on the ground, he has a pretty offensive guard. And I don't look for Scott Jorgensen to use the massive ground pound he does against Renan Barão, just because I don't see Renan Barão getting hit there a heck of a whole lot. But I don't even think it gets to the ground. I think Renan Barão will do a pretty good job of keeping it on the feet. And I think Scott Jorgensen will oblige to strike with him as well. I don't think he'll mind. I think he's going to chase him with haymakers and stuff. And I think we're going to see the superior footwork of Renan Barão just outwork Scott Jorgensen. He's going to use his solid Muay Thai, his more technical Muay Thai base. He has pretty good power in all limbs, and I think he's just going to out-combo Scott Jorgensen for the majority of the bout, and I look for him to win via unanimous decision because of that. So that's my pick, Renan Barão via UD. Alright folks, now let's move on to the welterweight division. There's that bout between Josh Koscheck and Mike Pierce there, and on paper it doesn't make sense, kind of like the Clifford Starks and Ed Herman bout, because, both these guys are kind of opposite ends on the rankings. You have Josh Koscheck, who's maybe top 5, then you have Mike Pierce, who's maybe top 15 tops. You know what I'm saying? So why is it going down? Well, Mike Pierce actually called out Josh Koscheck. Josh Koscheck retaliated. They're talking shit. They have a reason to sell the fight, and it's going down, so why not make it happen? So there's at least reasons for this one to go down, unlike the bout I already mentioned that is opening up the main card. But I think Mike Pierce kind of bit off a little bit more than he could chew here. I think Josh Koscheck has him outmatched everywhere. I think Koscheck's a better technical wrestler, more explosive guy, and he should be able to dictate the pace of this fight with his wrestling if he feels like it. Of course, he's Division 1 champion out of Edinburgh, and yeah, Mike Pierce, Division 1 wrestler himself, but I just don't think, again, he's technically as good as Koscheck or explosive, so he should get out-wrestled if Koscheck feels like doing so. Now, I think Mike Pierce will look to, strike with Josh Koscheck, however. I think he knows he's the more technical boxer, and I think that he should be able to, dictate the pace of the fight here and there with his boxing. But of course, Koscheck threatens most people with his power, solid power in both his left and right hand. And because of that, I don't think Mike Pierce is going to be as aggressive on the feet side. I think we're going to see Mike Pierce look kind of tentative throwing combinations, and I think Josh Koscheck's going to connect a few times with those power lefts and rights he has. So yeah, I look for Koscheck to do that, but I think it's going to look pretty close on the feet. But I look for Koscheck to take Mike Pierce down at the end of rounds to ice them, and I look for Koscheck to take at least a 29-28 decision here, and he's going to win via UD. So that's my pick, Josh Koscheck via unanimous decision. Alright folks, now let's move on to that heavyweight co-main event between Fabricio Werdum and Roy Big Country Nelson. Now, we haven't seen Werdum in the UFC since his knockout loss to Junior Dos Santos, but he's looked alright since. Of course, he went 3-1 in Strikeforce, but his last bout, he looked kind of ugly in against Alistair Overeem. I thought his game plan should have been get this fight to the ground at all costs. He didn't do that enough of in that bout, and that's why he lost. And yeah, I think that Roy Nelson, though, doesn't present the problems that Alistair Overeem does. And I think that Fabricio Werdum actually has Roy Nelson outmatched everywhere except for maybe the weight department. I think Roy Nelson, his best bet to win this fight is to pursue Fabricio Werdum with overhand rights and lefts and hopefully knock him out. I don't see Roy Nelson successfully Cajun praying Fabricio Werdum. I don't see Roy Nelson successfully being able to take Werdum down from any position. I think Werdum's a pretty good balance, and I think that why would you want to anyway if you're Roy Nelson? I'm sure Roy Nelson's a pretty good grappler himself, but Fabricio Werdum in all areas on the ground is pretty dangerous. He has pretty good sweeps, and if that guy somehow winds up on top of you, then it could be over with an armbar or something crazy like that. Now, I think Werdum will want to oblige to strike with Roy Nelson on the feet. And yeah, I think Roy Nelson's going to want to do the same. Of course, I already mentioned what I think Roy Nelson should do in just trying to knock him out. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think Fabricio Werdum has solid footwork, and it's going to be too solid for Roy Nelson. I think he's just going to dance around him, use solid leg kicks, use solid combinations, be aggressive, and just slip by those overhand rights and lefts from Roy Nelson. And I think that he has the cardio to do it over the course of 3 rounds. And I think he's going to win the fight because of that via unanimous decision. So that's my pick, Fabricio Werdum via UD. Alrighty folks, now let's move on to that interim welterweight championship main event between Nick Diaz and Carlos Condit. Now, I already mentioned my excitement for this, so let's just get to it. Now, I have to ask you guys this first though. Do you see Carlos Condit finishing Nick Diaz at all or early? Or do you see Carlos Condit being able to hang with Nick Diaz's pace and be able to be the same fighter in the earlier rounds in the later rounds? Because I personally don't. I think that Nick Diaz has too good of recovery to let any of Carlos Condit's early firepower get to him. I think that eventually Nick Diaz will turn it up in terms of his boxing output towards the later rounds, because I don't think Carlos Condit's going to be able to hang with him. And yeah, I like Nick Diaz via unanimous decision here because of that. I think Carlos Condit, I'm pretty sure he hasn't been to the 5th round before. Nick Diaz has, and I think Nick Diaz is a little bit more comfortable there. I think he's going to be able to, throw punches in bunches like usual in that 5th round. I just don't think Carlos Condit's going to be that aggressive towards then. So yeah, I got to go with Nick Diaz via unanimous decision. Before that, I think Carlos Condit, he's going to look all right with his knees and elbows and his solid combinations himself. He has pretty solid kicks as well. But eventually, I just think Nick Diaz is just going to walk through that. I don't think he's going to be faced by that shit, and I think he's eventually going to turn it up with, again, his boxing output. I don't think anyone throws as many punches as Nick Diaz does in MMA, and I think that he'll get to Carlos Condit over the course of 5 rounds. So I look for Nick Diaz to take at least 3 of them, and yeah, pick up a unanimous decision. So that's my pick, new welterweight champion, Nick Diaz. So unless you're some explosive Division 1 wrestler with pretty good sub-defense or GSP, it's hard for me to pick against Nick Diaz. In this case, against Carlos Condit, again, I just like his cardio a little bit better. And I just like his volume of punches over the course of 5. I think he gets it done. Again, Nick Diaz via unanimous decision. But that about does it for me, guys. I hope you guys like my picks. Tell me what you guys think of them in the comment section below. Subscribe if you haven't yet. And I guess I'll see you for a review after the event. And yeah, that about does it for me. Again, deuces for all my supporters. bruises for all my haters, and take care.